So, hello everybody. My name is Kati Clements, and today we are talking about learning technologies and innovation procurement. I am joined today by Leve Boss from DG Connect. Would you like to introduce yourself in the beginning a little bit? Unfortunately, Levi does not have a video, but hopefully we can hear you. Hi, Levi.
Hello.
Your microphone is on.
This is Leve Boss. Can you hear me?
Yes.
So I'm working in the European Commission in the Directorate General responsible for ICT technology, so including, of course, learning technologies. And I've been working mainly on how to trigger the demand side for innovative solutions over the past few years. And the ones that needs the most triggering are the public sector. There are lots of opportunities also to modernize the public sector with learning technology. We've seen this in the COVID crisis, decreasing need for remote learning. So this is a great area to work in, and I'm happy to join this webinar with you today.
Thank you. So the way that today's webinar is going to work is that first I'm going to introduce to you what is LearnTech Accelerator project in case you haven't heard about it yet. Today's webinar is for startups in particular, and we are going to talk what can innovation procurement methods give to startups, and also what does LearnTech Accelerator give for suppliers and for startups. And then after that, Leve is going to talk a little about opportunities that are available for startups. And at the end, we have some time for questions as well from you guys. The way that this GoToWebinar works is that you can ask a question. I think that you have a kind of box there where you can write a question or you can write a message in the chat box. And the other option that you have got is that you can raise your hand. There is a kind of hand raising button, I think, next to your name in the attendees list, at least. So these are ways that you can get in contact with us. But I think that in the beginning we are going to launch one poll to see who is there. We're trying to be a little bit interactive with our audience so that it wouldn't be just us talking and you guys listening. So Andre, if you can put on the poll. So we are interested in knowing if you are maybe a startup or if you are identifying as SME. Are you from public administration? Are you an expert of innovation procurement? Are you something else? How do you identify yourself? You can choose more than one category, I think. So depending on how you identify yourselves. Today we have got 22 people attending, and I think that we had some over 30 persons registered. So let's see, we can talk from that perspective. Okay, 68% have voted. What about the rest of you? 40%. Are you still thinking about your identity, who you could be? Okay. let's close this poll. 20% voted. Excellent. That's good. 74 even. Okay, so we have 18% of startups, 6% of SMEs, some public administration, experts in innovation, procurement, and other. I think that other category in this case is could be something that you identify yourself more. You can comment on the chat box if you want to say who you are, if these options were not so much available. But we have discussed before we started with Leve that she's going to speak a little bit also from other perspective of the kind of opportunities that are coming available, not only for startups, but of course this is mainly for startups now, so I'm hoping that you get some good ideas, at least some of you. So okay, so Learning Technology Accelerator. This is a 2.5-year project that is now coming to an end at the end of June. So 2.5 years we have been working on innovation procurement support, and this project was born from the idea that we noticed that when we were doing innovation procurement projects, that many municipalities and actors on this field needed some sort of support in understanding these instruments. They were not so familiar, and maybe it wasn't part of their core job to understand some complex things. This was also to create a network of buyers who might do joint or coordinated procurement together. So when we started, we said that we would create support mainly for procurers, but also for suppliers such as startups, and we would involve learning technology experts, because these are usually the people who are involved in the dialogue between procurers and suppliers in these projects, enabling somehow both sides to understand each other. And of course we needed also to bring in schools who are the end users of learning technology in many cases, and so that created LEA Network. You guys can go to LEA website. I'm just presenting a couple of things from our website, so you can look more into what LEA Buyers Network is from this quick video. I'm not sure if I can share the video and you can see it. What do you think, Andre? Would that be possible? Shall we try that?
Shall we try?
Or yeah, let's try that. Let's try what happens if I press this.
If you are a procurer of learning technology, like a school, municipality, region, or national authority, you should know about LEA Network, the buyer's network of learning technology. Oh, I know what you're wondering. Okay, but what is that about? Good question. LEA Network offers you an effective and better way to manage your future Learn Tech procurements. How? Easy. Meeting experts and peers and sharing knowledge with them about future Learn Tech and how to buy it. Having your voice heard by suppliers and policymakers, and helping you to build relationships with other public buyers to enable future joint procurement effectively. By grouping demand, you will obtain many benefits such as access to funds, increase the number of competitive bids, and your negotiation power with suppliers or share risks. The result is better technology for schools, bought in a competitive and cost-efficient manner. Joint procurement is not easy. It only works when public buyers have similar goals and strong relationships. That is what LEA Network provides, a strong foundation to build on in future. LEA Network is growing across Europe as more schools join in the movement towards more innovative technology-assisted teaching. Start connecting today by sharing your education challenges and join our network. You are welcome to LEA Network.
Okay, so at least nobody complained. I don't know how could you follow that, or was it okay?
Yes.
Okay, good. Right. So we started on the basis of 6 countries. As you saw in the video, we had Finland, Sweden, Germany, Italy, Portugal, and Spain. And buyers from these countries as the startup basis. Then we were gathering followers from each European member state. Mainly, we were contacting ministries of education as well as different schools. Anybody who is buying technology, you can see from the LEA map who are the followers and who are the LEA network members. The idea was to create a network which could be doing future procurement together, which would be also interesting for startups and for suppliers, because then they would create a bigger mass of end users, and possibly they would have bigger volume of purchases. So that would be driving somehow the innovation in Europe towards also European companies that could be offering these learning technologies for this buyers network. We were focusing on innovation procurement methodologies, mainly pre-commercial procurement, public procurement of innovation, and we were using these 2 procurement methods to create a personalized learning environment, because this was a need rising from the buyers, that we need to modernize education and we need to provide more advanced personalized learning solutions that there are in the market currently. It has been the situation in the market for a while that we can see artificial intelligence and these kind of advances in learning technologies that are far further in other sectors like healthcare, for example, and in education they have not been used up to their full potential. So by creating these kind of innovative solutions that could, for example, detect if there is going to be a school dropout based on the kind of performance that the child would be doing in the classroom, could possibly save a lot of money for municipalities. So these kind of ideas were behind in this personalized learning environment, innovation procurement. But of course, this is just one type of learning technologies, and that could be created with these kind of tools. We have in our project, we have had partners from 9 countries. We have, as I said earlier, we have municipalities and we have some research institutions also involved, but also some multiplier networks like Startup Europe, who kindly has organized today's webinar. So what kind of support can you get if you are a supplier? So if you go to our website and you click on suppliers, you can get access to our services that we provide for suppliers. The idea is to give information on the customers and also give you access to testing with the customers. So basically, we have been mapping needs from our network, and based on the needs rising, we have created some business cases. You can see some examples. Example of a PCP, an example of PPI that you can look later on with your own time. I'm gonna give you an example. So we named this the Please PPI, which was personal learning easy access for startups and SMEs proposal. And you can see that for this one, we had the consortium of 3 buyers groups. One was from Finland, one was from Portugal, and one was from Italy. And you can see the kind of investment that they were wanting to do for 6,000 students in their area. And this is based on the real need that the kind of personalized learning environments that they have been using are quite outdated and old, and they are not using learning analytics. They are not using this kind of monitoring or personalized content that would be pushed towards the learners. One idea behind this was also to save the teachers time, because what we noticed during the COVID crisis, for example, was that the teachers suddenly did not have any time at all, that they were working 12 hours a day trying to create content, trying to answer every single question from the students. But so there wasn't enough time to answer all the questions from the students and create content and all the things that the teachers needed to do during this time. And therefore it would be helpful if there is a platform that is using artificial intelligence to answer some of those questions automatically, that would give some sort of condensed information about the progress of the students for the teacher, so that there wouldn't be so much time spent in seeing what actually studied already and who has done what and who hasn't done what and so on. So to be a kind of more advanced personalized learning environment. So so basically this hub provides what do the buyers want. But also what we did in LEA project was that we created a kind of procurement profiles of each European member state in education technologies. So for example, if we click on let's say Finland, then we can see some country profile of what does the education procurement in Finland look like. You can look at some number information on how many students there has been, what is the legislation that is used, what are the procuring organizations involved and how to contact them, what kind of funding has been available in the past, what kind of public expenditure there has been, and what kind of investment plan there is, and if there is some sort of actual procedure on how to procure. And as you know, most European countries have their different procurement procedures, so it might be helpful if you are thinking about moving or selling for different market. Let's say that you have been operating in Sweden and you are thinking about moving to Finland. The procurement could be completely different. So this is a fast way for you to scout how the different European countries work on when it comes to education procurement. So this could be quite helpful for your market analysis on what could be a good market for you to move into. So this is completely free for you to of course browse, and you can get all this information also in the PDFs that are there available. And one more thing that we have got also for suppliers is access to schools. So we have created a LEA School Labs network of schools where we have used a so-called EduLab method, where we have had these kind of open days where through an open call, different companies have been allowed to go and test with the real teachers and real students their products and get immediate feedback. And this is something that startups have said to us that have been useful for them, because possibly they don't have that kind of budget for testing with real users, and they might not have their own, let's say, testing classes or so available. So this could be a good way for you to also get involved if you are looking for end users to test with and so on. So that's one of the things. So I think that's it, but I leave you to explore our website, and now we are going to give you an overview of the kind of opportunities that the European Commission has for startups. And I'm going to give the floor now for Lieve to make her presentation at this point.
Okay, can you see my slides?
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Yes.
Yes, you see it? Okay, great. So then we can start. So what is the European Commission doing in terms of innovation, procurement, support, and the connection with startups? First of all, yes, in the past, we were only supporting the supply side, or mainly supporting the supply side, telling companies and universities, be innovative, develop new stuff, but then often the connection to the market didn't work as well as expected, and there were not enough buyers taking up the solutions that were developed. So 10 years ago, we started saying, okay, this means we need to activate also the demand side, and especially the public sector being always a bit slower than the private sector demand side. Let's do something to support the procurement of innovations. Why is this interesting to do? Of course, it's a win-win for the innovators. It helps them to shorten time to market if they can get quicker access to buyers. It can open sales opportunities for them. especially also for smaller companies that can react quickly to new needs. And it can help smaller companies to scale up their business and go to market if we help them reach out to buyers across the whole of Europe, right? And this confidence from the market may also help the companies attract new financial investors to grow their business altogether. For the public sector, like Katja already mentioned, it's mainly about getting better value for money solutions to modernize their public services faster, but also sometimes to remove supplier lock-in. They are often locked into large supplier already for many years, and actually they could get better value solutions by innovating a bit in their supply side, opening it up more to smaller, more innovative companies. And another reason why we are supporting also innovation procurement from the Commission side is, of course, to create growth and jobs in Europe. That's also why we have support not only for procurements that immediately deploy innovative solutions, the ones that we call PPI, Public Procurement of Innovative Solutions, but we have also support for procurements that start already earlier, that start buying the development and testing of new solutions that are in fact working at the pre-commercial stage. That's the ones that we call pre-commercial procurements. Why is that? Because the procurement of R&D falls outside of procurement obligations, international procurement agreements. So we can then require the majority of the research and development work to be done in Europe. And this stimulates then European industry and it makes them ready also for large-scale deployment projects that will come afterwards. So this is how it looks all together. With the pre-commercial procurements, we are supporting the solution design, prototyping, development, testing, and possibly even the first purchase of resulting solutions at a small scale. And then with the procurements of innovative solutions, that's where wider deployment comes in with bigger buyer groups and going for deployment of commercial volumes of solutions. Like Kati already showed that the LEA network was trying to create buyers groups for this. So what have we done so far? This is a lot of information on one slide, but just in case you're interested in one of those, you have the links to all the pre-commercial procurement projects that we have been supporting so far. And you see the email project on the left, which was about personalized learning. Then we have also supported already quite a few procurements of innovative solutions. What does it mean that we support these procurements? We give financing for procurers to prepare these procurements, to run them, and we also co-finance the actual procurement costs, so the money that they give to suppliers to deliver in the pre-commercial procurements research and development, and in the PPIs, the actual solutions in large scale to the procurers. The funding rate so far for pre-commercial procurements has been 90%, and for procurements of innovative solutions, 35%. And then we also support coordination and support actions at 100% funding. That's like the LEA project, a group of potential procurers and other stakeholders preparing the ground for future innovation procurements. Now, what has been the impact of all this? The impact of PPI procurement, so procuring innovative solutions, has been pretty similar to any kind of procurement that you know. It's typically more difficult for startups and SMEs to enter these kind of procurements right away without any preparation, because they are looking for large volumes of solutions and therefore also requiring quite some capacity from the supplier. That's why I show you now mainly the results of the pre-commercial procurements, because probably that's less familiar to you, and that's where, like I said, there is the opportunity to make the smaller players ready for large PPI procurements afterwards, to actually grow small startups along the procurement so that they can then compete more effectively with large suppliers later when the big procurements come for large deployments. So we have supported quite a few pre-commercial procurements. In total, over 100 procurers have been participating, over almost 350 companies and 63 universities and research centra also. So often when there is a startup, there is also already supporting university or research centra in one of these bids, helping the startup to deliver the research and development of the solutions. So what has been the result so far? Has it really been opening the market for new players, for the smaller ones? Yes, typically in public procurement or procurement around Europe, only around 1/3 of the contracts goes to SMEs, and in the pre-commercial procurements was more than the double. And when I say SMEs, it's mainly startups. It's mainly very small startups even. Have there been no larger market players than in any of these projects? No, of course, there have been also larger companies, especially in those areas where large companies are, of course, also very active. But if you see, 73.5% of all contracts were awarded to SMEs, either alone or together with a larger company. The 16.5% that I mentioned before was contracts that were won by SMEs on their own, not with any support of a large company. So really SMEs being able to bring to market their own ideas and their own products without being dependent on other entities. Involvement of universities, like we said, we also see this actively to help startups spin off out of the university. Has it been stimulating the growth of companies across borders in Europe? Because often companies have the problem that, okay, they're able to sell locally, but selling in another country is much more difficult to access that market. Again, to compare it with the average in all public procurement around Europe, typically, sadly, only 1.7% of all these procurements are won by vendors from another country. In the pre-commercial procurements, almost 1/3 of the contracts were won by bidders from none of the countries of the procurers in the buyers group. So from totally new vendors that they had often not even heard about before. So yes, it's helping companies access new markets, get to know what these buyers want, get their solutions tested with these buyers. So this is also a positive thing that companies tell us. Has it been creating growth and jobs in Europe? Like I said, we require that vendors do minimum half of the work for the pre-commercial procurement in Europe, and we see that in reality they have all done almost all of the work in Europe. So yes, compared to traditional procurement, it is much more activity happening in Europe. These were the immediate results that we can see immediately from how the contracts are awarded, but what has been the impact after all these procurements were finished, let's say 1 or 2 years afterwards? We checked again what happened with the companies, especially also the smaller companies. Did they survive after this procurement? Did they grow? In terms of commercialization of solutions, we saw that from all the suppliers that made it until the end of the pre-commercial procurement, that really had a working solution that was tested, 86% of them successfully commercialized their solution. 2 years after the project, they were selling it. Even from those who did not make it till the last testing phase, but got stuck after prototyping, 75% of them still continued testing and further developing their product on their own and got it on the market by 2 years after the procurements. And even from those who didn't get selected for prototyping but only participated in the first phase of the pre-commercial procurement, the design phase, even 30% of those still commercialized their solutions. The feedback from suppliers was that the pre-commercial procurement actually doubles their commercialization rate. Have they grown their business? About half of the suppliers that were in the pre-commercial procurements had 2 years after the procurement already increased their revenues. 1/4 of the startups had secured extra equity investment. So yes, being in a procurement, having participated with real buyers, gave more confidence to financial investors to invest more in these startups. And 80% of the startups also partnered with larger companies, found these partnerships to grow their business in that way. We've also seen a small link between SMEs that were in the pre-commercial procurements and those that applied for additional financing from the EU through the SME instrument. About 1 company per pre-commercial procurement also attracted additional funding from the EU SME instrument. So it's possible to combine different sources of funding. If you're a startup and you participate in an innovation procurement, you can of course still apply also for other startup funding in your own country, but also from the EU SME instrument. What happened with exit strategy of the companies that had been in pre-commercial procurements? Well, 12% of the startups had 2 years after the procurement already undergone a merger or acquired another company, and 3% of them had gone already on the stock markets, one even on the Nasdaq, and is selling to really huge procurers around the world. So yes, we see growth, we see business growth that's very positive. Here you have an overview of different kind of effects that were generated, additional funds that were leveraged through venture capital and additional grants that the companies attracted by having been in the pre-commercial procurements, how much they've increased their revenues, additional IPRs, patents that they were able to secure, export that they were able to reach, how much cost savings they created in public services, and so on, all the positive effects on one page. So what are now real examples? What are SMEs really doing that have benefited from such procurements, and how did we help them grow? One of the first pre-commercial procurements was on robotics for elderly. And one of the companies, successful companies out of that is Cerebral, a startup that really grew its business during the pre-commercial procurement and afterwards. It developed a sort of exoskeleton system that strengthens the muscles of the elderly, but it can also be used in professional environments for factory workers and so on, that provides extra grip and independence to do heavy tasks. They won several rounds of extra investment thanks to the PCP, commercializing now their solutions worldwide, not only in the Nordics where they're from, but also even to the US, to the NASA, to General Motors, to really huge companies. They are the company that are on Nasdaq. And how did they grow their business? They, by participating in the pre-commercial procurement, by using it as a leverage to find extra venture capital investment, and by combining it also with growth funding from the European SME instrument. Another example is a small startup in the area of localization techniques for firefighters. There is, of course, GPS localization outside, but firefighters operate often inside where GPS coverage is not there. And they developed some technique to really localize a firefighter when he's somewhere in the smoke or unconscious, or when his pals don't see him anymore because everything is full of fire, to improve basically the safety of firefighting. They also combined this with extra funding of the SME instruments, won some awards, and then started commercializing worldwide. In this case also, for example, to Asia, to Taiwan, China, and so on. Another example is in the healthcare sector, a company that combined their participation in innovation procurements together with regional development funding, European regional development funding, to do further testing, larger scale testing of their solutions, and checking the compliance with legal requirements in different countries. They used regional funding to speed up things on a larger scale. And that's how they were able to get their solution, which is a telemedicine solution that has the ability to predict where infections will break out over the next few hours in hospitals. And this enables, of course, the doctors to do earlier diagnosis and to prepare in advance for upcoming crisis situations that they don't even know will happen in the coming hours yet. It has reduced the mortality rate in the hospital, less people die, and people recover faster. They're also selling their solution globally across to the US, and they did that by establishing branches of their company in other parts of the world, but also by partnering with larger companies and distributors in these other parts of the world. Here you see another company from Greece that provides smart techniques to make use of healthcare records of patients. They developed their solutions during a pre-commercial procurement, but then combined this with extra deployment funding from the Connecting Europe facility program to deploy it more widely across several countries in Europe and to enrich their innovation also with new techniques. So you see, procurements are a way to get started or to boost your developments, but often you need to combine it. You grow faster, at least if you combine it with all kinds of other support to access markets faster. What are interesting links for you to look at? If you're a procurer, we have European assistance to help you how to do an innovation procurement. There are some examples, videos from companies and procurers that explain what has been their experience in an innovation procurement. We are also having a network of national competence centers on innovation procurement that can help both companies and procurers in how do I participate in an innovation procurement, how do I do it. And then we are also doing a study that is actually benchmarking different countries in how far they have evolved in deploying innovation procurement in their area. So there you might want to check the country profiles to see how the situation is in the countries that interest you. How much support has the EU given to innovation procurement so far? Well, it has been increasing since we started about 10 years ago, every time a bit more and more and more. This is the funding across all the research and innovation and SME programs that has been spent on the different types of procurement. Are there still calls this year for procurers to do innovation procurements? Yes, there is still one which still has to come. The call is not open yet, but it will arrive somewhere in the summer, and it will be supporting procurements that deploy innovations related to greening the public sector and modernizing public administration in general, digitizing it. So that could be also an opportunity for deploying innovations in the learning sector, I would say. So keep an eye on that if you're a procurer from the LEA project or from another project interested in deployment funding. Startups told us also last year what they need. At the Startup Europe Summit, startups told the Commission, this is what we want in terms of improvement for innovation procurement over the coming years. They said, we want real ambitions for innovation procurement, not just funding for some projects and gradually increasing support. We want public authorities to set targets, ambition levels. We want to spend X% of our public funding on innovation. They said we want more open and more transparent procurements. We want them all published so that we can all access them. We want shorter term contracts because long-term huge contracts are difficult for startups. And we don't want difficult conditions to be able to qualify for these procurements. And mostly we see that in Europe compared to other parts of the world, there is still a problem with IPR allocation in procurements. We want as startups all intellectual property rights to remain as much as possible with the innovators, otherwise we cannot innovate. So we listen to all that, of course, And these are things that we are doing or that still need to be done to improve. We want to set more ambitious targets for innovation procurement. We see indeed that in other parts of the world there exist ambitious targets, or they are already spending more than in Europe. So we think there need to be targets. They are not there yet, but we are working towards encouraging procurers and member states to set targets. Once the benchmarking study is finished and we have a good overview of how much is being spent in Europe today, it will be easier to agree on targets, perhaps. We are trying to continuously increase the transparency of procurements from the European Commission side. And then I mean not only publication of the actual calls for tender to deploy the solutions, but also any open market consultations that happen before procuring. Consulting the industry should also be done in a transparent way. Through the pre-commercial procurements, we are doing what SMEs are asking. That's also why there are so many SMEs and startups in them. Doing small stepwise growing contracts and helping SMEs attract financial investors. We're creating a recommendation, a guidance document for procurers that explains how to leave IPR with companies safely in procurements, because they're of course worried then that they will use all their rights, but that's not the case. And we're trying to link more actively the support for SMEs, not only through innovation procurements, but also with our other support for SMEs. So we're trying to facilitate the access of SMEs that are in innovation procurements to other types of SME funding, grants, equity investment, meetings with corporates and investors so that they can grow their business faster. Everywhere where there is a bottleneck in certification or standardization, we also try to address that from the Commission side where possible. Then we are here, since the COVID-19 crisis, we are preparing an updated version of the new funding programs, because all our funding programs the cycle of funding is stopping in 2020, and we are creating a new funding cycle for the next years after 2020. And these new funding programs are, of course, focusing mainly now on recovery from the crisis, kickstarting more private investment, and improving Europe in the areas where we clearly lacked, where we had lessons learned from the crisis. So how does that affect innovation procurement support in the next multi-financial financing framework, as this is called? More programs than in the past have expressed in their proposals to the member states their desire to support innovation procurement. In the past, it was through the research and innovation and SME programs at the top there, the Horizon programs. But now it will also go over in other programs. For example, the digital programs, the Connecting Europe Facility, Digital Europe program will also dedicate more funding to deployment of digital solutions, including in the training and education sector, and also make more money available for testing and experimentation, for example, in digital innovation hubs across the regions of Europe. The regional development programs are also have been making available more money for innovation procurement in the crisis and will continue to do so in the future. In the area of greening, making everything more sustainable, there also the LIFE program and the Climate Innovation Fund will make more money available, or at least have expressed this desire to do that, for demonstration, go-to-market support, and for innovation procurement. And also the new European Defence Program is going to support joint procurement between member states, including also pre-commercial procurements. So you will see innovation procurement across more programs in the future in the EU, and also in every program in a reinforced way. We are maturing gradually our innovation procurement strategy, let's say. The digital support in the next framework, you can see, by the way, all the proposals for all these programs online and check what is being foreseen in them for learning. For Digital Europe, that's a totally new program. It will be 9.2 billion euro that we've requested to the member states. That will focus on really deploying advanced technologies and creating more advanced skills on how to use these technologies in the member states. So that's also where the learning aspects will pop up, of course. Digital is also still in the horizon in the research and innovation programs and in all kinds of other programs, creative content programs and Connecting Europe facility for creating interconnections between member states. So there will be lots of digital support for deployment and new innovations. Related to skills in the Digital Europe program, there is also what I wanted to show you, training for small businesses foreseen. So that might be something interesting for SMEs and startups. Then in terms of support for the public sector in the Digital Europe program, there is a specific window for deployment, supporting deployment in the public sector. So, and there also you see that education is one of the application areas where we need more deployment of innovative digital solutions. And in the Digital Innovation Hub network, there will be both support for SMEs and public sector to test solutions, for training, for making the interconnection between suppliers and buyers at the local level also. Finally, I also want to ask you to help spread the message. There are still public procurers and there are still companies in Europe that don't know about all these opportunities. So if any of you can help promote all these opportunities, that would be really helpful. Finally, here are some interesting links. The first one is to our Innovation Procurement website, where you can find more information about all the above. Then you see also the next link, the link to our funding and tenders portal from the EU, where you find all the funding and tender opportunities. If you go to the search button there and you enter innovation procurement or pre-commercial procurement or procurement of innovative solutions, you will find all the opportunities related to that. In terms of direct support for startups, we have the Startup Europe initiative that can help you if you're a startup. And there is also the European Innovation Council with the link there that provides grant support, equity support, connection to corporates and investors for startups. So all of this together is very interesting for all of you, I think. I hope this has inspired you, and I'm very happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Lieve. Very comprehensive overview on what has been done in innovation procurement in regards of companies and startups in the last 10 years. Very, very interesting. So now we could take some questions from the audience. As I said in the beginning of this webinar, you can either raise your hand and we can unmute you, or you can ask the questions in the question. I think you have like a question section where you can write the question there. So those are the possibilities on how to do that. And there is also a chat function. So one of those. But while you guys can think, if you have any questions, I was thinking of asking some questions from Lieve that came into my mind when listening to your presentation. And you said that when you were surveying the startups and what do they want from you, they had mentioned that this kind of short-term contracts, and I guess it means a kind of faster flexibility, the kind of funding possibilities that we could see during the COVID situation, at least in Finland. the government was making quite fast responses of opening calls for research projects, for various things that you could, with quite fast-paced, apply some sort of smaller amounts of money for shorter-term contract and so on. So my question is that has the Commission been thinking about this kind of instruments that wouldn't be taking let's say 3 years or 2 years time to fulfill, as I think that startups probably are often in a kind of cash crisis, or can be. So I think that. So do you have any knowledge on the background on how are you designing anything for shorter term contracts at the moment?
Yeah, with regards to direct support to startups, all the opportunities to apply for grants or for equity support, they are going to be more and more centralized in the European Innovation Council and in the InvestEU funding. And there we already had in the European Innovation Council regular call-offs a couple of times per year. Yeah, and during the COVID crisis, they've made available more of the support and more regularly. The idea is to look at, of course, how to continue doing so. But there were already quite a number of calls per year available. Of course, yeah, the issue is that when it's done at EU level, such calls, we often get loads of proposals. They all need to be evaluated, and this takes some time to do it in a fair way. What regards innovation procurement support, so support to procurers, which then eventually also ends up with startups when they start procuring. Here we have had, in my opinion, 2 sporadic calls over the past years. There was never continued support for innovation procurement in every sector, let's say. And the idea is that we hope also by spreading it now across more programs and mobilizing more budget, that there will be a better coverage of being able to find some support at the moment when you need it. And I've also been advocating to do just like we do with the funding for companies, also with the funding for procurers, to use more regular cutoff dates so that they cannot apply only just at one moment of the year, but at multiple moments, multiple times during the year. Let's see how fantastic we all implement this, but at least this is what I've been promoting, and we will try to make this happen. We've also done some proposals to shorten the implementation time of current procurement projects that we fund. So at the moment, we have pre-commercial procurements that go through 3 stages: design, prototyping, testing, and some of the startups suggested actually in various areas the prototyping and the testing could be combined. So we are now suggesting to allow procurers to do 2 phases instead of 3-phased procurements to make things go faster, and also to see if we can use lighter procurement procedures for the PPIs, for the deployment projects, for procurements that are of smaller size, to make things go faster also for SMEs. So these kind of improvements we've been discussing internally. The funding programs have not been published yet, but just to tell you that we are thinking about that. We are also thinking to increase the funding for SMEs in the European Innovation Council, funding to prepare them prepare them for procurements, to train them on how do you apply for an innovation procurement, so that they are more ready when a call is actually published. They already can get funding to go to fairs and events to present their solutions to procurers, but the actual helping them to prepare their offer and how to prepare themselves for a procurement, that was not there yet. So we try to tackle from different angles, also speeding up the interconnection between companies that arrive in a procurement and other access to other types of EU funding, whether it's venture capital or other support that could help them grow their business. We try to make the link faster so that they can grow faster, not only from procurement funding, but also from other funding. So yeah, we're trying different things, and hopefully all of this together will work as in a synergetic way to improve the situation. If you have other suggestions, go ahead, and we can see how we could learn from it.
Yes, of course. LEA project, now that it's coming to an end, we are going to make also a roadmap and with our lessons learned from previous. We have also been doing some desktop studies on what to learn from other sector PPIs and PCPs and how they compare with education sector. So I can obviously send you the report once it's ready at the end of this month. So I think that would be interesting. Another question that I was thinking was the PPI instrument for education sector and how it fits with the for example municipalities budget and so on. Of course, at the moment it has been so that let's say the money has been 35%, right, from you, and then they have to cover the rest from the municipalities in PPI, if I understand it correctly. I was wondering because I think that you had planned to have a kind of PPI call open this year already, but it was not. It did not take place. Then was it anything to do with the kind of complexity of the way that it's difficult sometimes to get, like in the education sector, there is not so much money necessarily that it can be difficult to get the money together for PPI. I don't know. This was just a thought that we got when we were planning our PPI project, that maybe in healthcare, if you are looking for, let's say, robotics for a hospital, then one operation costs already so much that it's the kind of money that you are asking for is very small amount of money in comparison to on the education sector where the money is quite tight. Do you understand my question?
Yes. Yeah. In the ICT sector, we had not planned any PPI call this year. The projects that were well, we had PPI calls in the previous years, and from the other sectors, we had seen that there were going to be PPI calls, for example, from the COSME program that were open to any area anyway. So that's why we didn't have any dedicated calls for PPI. There is indeed an issue with the funding in PPIs, that the 35% funding from the EU procurers don't always find this the optimal way of funding. The feedback has been that they would prefer to get for really innovative solutions a bit higher funding rate, something like 50% for the procurement cost, and for the coordination activities, especially the 35%, they found too low, and they would like this to be funded much higher, ideally even at 100%. In order not to run the risk when they've finished all the preparation of the procurement and then they launch it and there is no supplier actually able to deliver, that they've done all this investment in the preparation, lots of it with their own budget, and then can never recuperate the benefits through the procurement. So yes, I've been advocating for changing the funding mechanism for the PPIs in that direction, but we don't have the confirmation on it yet that this is what will happen, so I cannot confirm it to you yet, but we know that there is an issue with the 35% funding rate, and we're trying to find a way to improve it, because you are right, doing procurements together, even if it's not really one joint procurement, but several coordinated procurements, which are also possible in the PPI projects, right? Each procurer doing their own procurement procedure, but coordinating a bit that they're all in procuring something in the same domain, like e-learning. Even this is already a lot of work and a lot of effort for procurers. We know, and we are trying to improve the situation, but I cannot tell you yet how exactly it will work in the future.
Okay, but it's good news that you are considering how it is. I was thinking that depending on the field's cost structure, it can be that there is not so much investments into education as there is, for example, for healthcare and so on. And therefore, it's difficult to compete with a proposal that is coming from healthcare sector. If you are from education, for example, when you have small schools who have very small amount of budgets and so on, so you have to have quite many of them in order to have a critical mass and to have a kind of competitive solution. And of course, if you have a lot of different schools, then the management might be quite difficult for one call for tender, for example. So but it's good that you have gotten this kind of feedback and are thinking something into that direction. Do we have any questions from the audience at this point? We had scheduled for 1.5 hours of talk, and it said interactive session for the last half an hour. So I am curious of the audience, of who you guys are. So I thought that it would be nice at this point, if there is no questions for Lieve, to go around a little bit. And I would like to know who you are. And are you new to innovation procurement? Is this familiar to you, and has this been interesting for you? So I'm going to give some chance for you to introduce yourselves now, for the audience. So we can start from alphabetical order, because that's how the list is ordered right now. So on top we have got Alfredo Sanchez. My pronunciation might not be so good, but Alfredo, where are you from, and what's your background into learning technologies? I have unmuted your microphone. Are you available? No? Hi, Alfredo. Okay, if not, how about Anna Mendes? Hi, Anna. Hello. Do we have a completely silent audience today? Hello. Hi, Anna. I can hear at least that you are there. Hello. Okay. Then there would be Anna's. This is so exotic that I can't even pronounce.
Hello.
Anna's. Hi. Okay,
Yes,
so you are there.
thank you very much.
Who are you and where are you from?
Yes, I'm Anas Basalama. I'm from Saudi Arabia. I have a startup in AI and smart cities. So I was excited to know today about and learn about your support that EU brings to entrepreneurs and innovation in general. So I hope I will read a lot about the documents you prepared, and I hope I can contact you later to kind of see how we can benefit from this support.
Thank you. Thank you for introducing yourself. Yes, you can of course always contact us. In the LEA website, we have LEA experts profiles. If you have a specific question on certain area of expertise, you can also contact the experts that we have got. I'm going to give you the link in the chat box. Hopefully this comes to you, where you can contact us later on also. Thank you. Then we have got Antonio. Antonio Govea.
Yes, hello, are you listening?
Yes.
Okay, so let me see. Quick presentation. I'm an intern, basically starting my professional career. So I have no previous experience in innovation procurement or innovation whatsoever. But anyway, it's a field which interests me. So when I saw the a tweet about this this webinar, I decided to join, and it's actually interesting because being sort of a marginal field, I mean, by this presentation, you get to see that, I mean, that here currently and in the future, I mean, it has a potential to become quite important. Because, I mean, like you both said, I mean, with Corona and all that, we've actually seen the importance of e-learning. And probably this is starting right now only to secondary schools, but probably also reach universities in the future with online learning. So yeah, it was a good presentation. It was interesting, and it's an interesting field.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Interesting to hear from you. Then we have got Ashley. Do you want to introduce yourself a little bit, Ashley McLennan? Trying to connect your audio. Andre, are you able to do that?
Yes.
No? Yeah.
Yeah. Hi, Kathy.
Hi. This is
Can
Anna.
you listen? Yeah, this is Anna. Yeah, I'm a business advisor and project manager in a incubator in the north of Spain, which is called CEI Asturias, Big Asturias. We act under the Business and Innovation Center branch, and we support technology-based companies. I'm involved in European programs focused on startups and technology-based companies. So I would like to know about LEA program and also about the new programs focused on startups and innovation and technology-based companies from the European Commission. So your presentation and also the presentation from Lydia was really, really good for me because we applied for European programs in order to support our companies and also focus on the application from the own companies. Yeah, in both cases, from our own in order to provide other support from SMEs and in order to advise them how to apply for Horizon 2020 or SME program and this kind of actions. So really, really good. All the the webinar, and thank you very much. I am now involved in the CERN Startup Region CERN. Yeah. So I have joined 2 or 3 weeks ago, so I have known about these activities that you are doing recently. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you very much,
That's
and I
great.
hope to continue in contact for other things.
Thank you for this feedback. Yes, we are also going to continue LEA's webinars in the autumn, even though the project ends. But since this is a very good tool for everybody to work together, we are still going to continue, even though it's not funded by the European Commission at that point anymore. But still, you know, it's benefiting us all. So I think that it's good to continue to work together. Thank you for introducing yourself. Okay. Then we have Ashley. I still can't unmute her. Maybe you can, Andre. I don't know. Andre is working this from the behind.
Hello, can you hear me?
The scenes.
Hi, Katya, can you hear me? Yes. Hi, yes, I'm Ashley.
Yes.
I work for ICLEI and we're a network of local governments. So I work on innovation and sustainable procurement. I've been involved with the LEA project and it's been my first involvement with innovation procurement in the education sector. So it's been really interesting. I think what makes it a particularly interesting but complex sector to talk about innovation procurement is that it involves so many people. I mean, it's not just who's buying, but it's also about what the teachers needs and what the pupils needs. You know, it involves curriculum, it involves different actors at different levels. So I hope that the work that LEA's done is going to be helpful for startups when they're trying to navigate that complex environment. But I also think that, you know, we still have lots to learn. So if the startups here have experience of selling LearnTech to schools, it would be great to hear about that experience as well. You know, who they're selling to, who's open to hear new ideas, because yeah, this is a learning network. And yeah, I hope that all the resources that you've introduced today are helpful. And also thanks to Leva for presenting. That's a really great overview of everything that the Commission's doing.
Thank you, Ashley. Next, we have got Laura. Laura, are you there? Laura Ribottom.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, sorry, it doesn't work before. I'm from the municipality of Turin and I'm a LEA partner, and we started at our EduLab during the period of LEA project, and we are at the beginning of our tests between schools, companies, and between stakeholders that are interested in LearnTech. And we are at the beginning of our trip. Then we have a lot of things to do, and we want to join with people, with companies, with startups who want to test something in school in Turin or around Europe.
Thank you, Laura. So Laura is in charge of this EduLab concept. You can hear more, or you can look at the LEA website more on this kind of testing opportunities in the support for schools section. If you are interested in this part, I already introduced it today. Then we have Leonardo Carbone. Leonardo, are you there? Let's see if we can connect your audio.
No, I'm afraid we can't.
We can't, okay. That's okay. Then there would be Roberto. He also doesn't have audio. If you guys want to introduce yourselves, you can also do it in the chat box. And Romina? No? You also don't want to introduce yourself? And Romualdas? I don't know how to say. Romualdas. Is that correct? Hello.
Yes, that's correct. Romualdas from Vilnius, from Lithuania.
Oh, Lithuania.
Yeah.
Wow. I was thinking, where is this name from? So that was interesting.
Yeah. From Lithuania. I do hope you are from Finland.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I am.
I'm very grateful to your webinar. It's very useful. I mean, to know that you have so many tools for the procurement. I think that in the future we will use these tools. I represent Smart Energy Digital Innovation Hub in Lithuania.
Okay.
We have a lot of stakeholders. Started from universities and ended with startups, which is acting in smart energy field. And this means I found this webinar very useful, and I will reach you by website and so on.
That's really interesting to hear. So you are like a multiplier. So you can tell also for your networks and so on about these opportunities. So that's positive. That's exactly what we are looking for.
Yeah.
Great.
And
thanks for
we are planning on 22nd of June our stakeholder meeting, and I will present this webinar as well.
Oh, excellent. We will put this video online so you can also direct some people to listen to it if you want for later on.
And maybe also you put online and the presentations as well.
Yes, we can discuss this. I think that they will be at least inside the video. I have to confirm with Lieve if she gives us permission to use her slides as well.
Thank you.
Yes, of course, you can use my slides.
Okay, great. Thank you. I think that those would be helpful for our audiences. And on the list is Sara Pedin from Turin also. Hi, Sara.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much for this webinar. Also, the contribution of Liv is always very inspiring. I'm an expert on innovation procurement, supporting within the partnership of LEA, supporting public procurers and suppliers to implement and kick off PCP and PPI initiatives. So my references are there. But now in this period, I'm also preparing myself. I'm studying to become, as an ambition, a teacher in secondary school. I'm approaching the school world thanks also to LEA participation and involvement. And I realize as a little bit insider that the developments are not user-centric. It's rarely that users, teachers and students are involved in the requirement definition. And this is so particular of this word that needs to have habilitated a bottom-up initiative. It's not always possible to impose top-down solution. And this emerged during the distance learning period we had during this sanitary emergence. It emerged how the technology and learning and teaching technologies need to be tested, developed through the contribution and the requirement definition of the end users. And so I'm available to support all the procurers and suppliers also after the end of this project. Thank you, Katy, and thanks to all.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, Sarah. Yes, you mentioned very important part, which is that actually innovation procurement is an answer to this problem that the education sector has been having with technology, which is that the schools might get some sort of gadgets brought in and bought to do the school, and if they come, let's say, top down, or they just come because some company has gone there and been able to sell the products there, it's if they don't rise from the actual needs of the teachers needing something, or the students needing something, then it's often that technology is left to the corner to gather dust, and this is very unfortunate, but I have seen it happen again and again in education sector. And I think innovation procurement allows this kind of co-creation methodology where actually the teachers and students can be a part of the development of these technologies, and they can have actual effect on how what do the technology do, and what would be more convenient and easy to use for them, and this is really like in the core, I think, of innovation procurement, and why it's useful specifically for education sector, of course, for each other sectors as well.
Katy, I just want, if convenient, that you mention also our challenge tool.
Yes,
if you think now, because you haven't mentioned it.
Thanks, Sarah. So for one more thing, maybe I can share my screen, one or two more things. So Andre, can you share my screen somehow? Yes, okay, thank you. Okay, so a couple more things came into my mind also, and thanks Sarah for pointing that out. So in our support hub in our website, there is also a procurement idea tool where procurers can leave their ideas or their special interest ideas for other procurers or suppliers to look at. For example, they describe these ideas in the tool. Let's look at one of them. So our procurers have been working in here. Let's see if we can still open this. So this is an idea from the municipality of Konnevesi, the use of digital teaching and learning platforms in schools idea, and it has been described in here also. If you're a procurer or if you're a member of LEA Network as a procurer, you can vote and say that you are interested in this call, so we see which municipalities would be interested in joining this particular procurement idea. And the idea, of course, is that if you're looking for example, a joint procurement where you could have a bigger volume to present for suppliers, then this is a place to find your group of buyers, for example. And for startups or for suppliers, it might be interesting for you to go and look at the ideas, because these are indicating what do the municipalities and teachers really need. So this is useful for you from that perspective. So that's also there. So this is a kind of initial idea on where procurement can begin. And I would also like to mention that in some cases I have met startups and also companies who did not know about the TED portal, so the Tenders Electronic Daily Portal, which publishes all these calls for tenders, including prior information notices from PCP and PPI projects. So this is definitely something that you should be looking at if you are a company, to see what kind of procurement is coming up in your area. So this is definitely a very important portal for you. I'm sure all of you know this already, but just in case you didn't know, then I think that that's something to look at. Okay, we have now gone already 1.5 hours. I think that it's time to say thank you for LEA for joining us today. And thank you also for our audience. Thank you for introducing yourselves and giving us an idea on where you are. Quite a nice spread around Europe and beyond. I wasn't expecting Saudi Arabia, but yes, okay. All right. Thank you, LEA.
It was my pleasure. Thank you for organizing it.
And LEA project, as I said already in my presentation, is going to continue our webinars in the autumn, in September. And they will be not so regular as they have been this spring, because we are going to self-fund ourselves. But we are aiming to have at least once a month webinar where you guys can also come and join and see what's happening in learning technology, innovation, procurement areas. So I'm going to welcome or say to everybody, have a good summer, and I hope to see you in the autumn then. Bye guys. Thank you.
Thank you.